Hey, what's up? My name is Morgan Markovich. I'm gonna go over the basics of a reformer. So, you got a reformer, now what? Learning the parts of the reformer is just as important as learning the exercises. So this whole big thing that you have, and it probably looks different than mine, okay, this is called your reformer. Now, there's lots of different parts. Let's go over the most important main parts of your reformer. Okay, right here, this thing is called your foot bar. My foot bar has 3 positions. I slide the tabs in, I pull out the metal and the black part to move it. It can go bottom, middle, or top. Yours may be a little different. A lot of the reformers have where you come over to the foot bar, make sure you use both hands, you pull up, and then you'll hear it click and it slides back and forth, or it slides down and up. You'll be able to tell if you have one that slides. You'll see the levers and the positions on the side. If you don't, it's usually on the inside. Okay, so that's your foot bar. Super important part of the reformer. Hi. Next, you have your platform underneath. Balanced body, the platform's pretty small. There are extenders you can buy for it. Other brands, they're padded little bars. Platforms. So it just depends on what brand you have, but there's always gonna be a platform under the foot bar. The purpose of this is for standing or for bridging, stuff like that, to modify. We'll go over that later in another video when we go over the basics of the exercises. Down by the platform, you have all of your springs. This is where things vary quite a bit. Balanced body, I have 5 springs. I have usually 2 red, a green, a blue, and a yellow. Depending on which reformer you have and which springs you ordered that came with your reformer, that could vary. Basically what you have usually is light versus heavy springs. Okay, so on balanced body specific and a lot of other brands that are colored, yellow and blue are your light springs, green and red are your heavy springs. Depending on the reformer you have all of them on, the resistance can equal up to around or above 200 pounds. So it just depends on which springs you have and all that stuff. And then of course the foot bar position, how much actual resistance you get. With your springs, you may see above buttons. They're little circular type things where you can hook your springs onto. That adds somewhere around 20% resistance. So if you have an exercise where one's too heavy, one's too light, you need something in between, you would move the lighter spring up to the button. Okay, this thing right here is called a carriage. The carriage is like the mat of the reformer. Some reformers have really firm ones, some of them have really padded ones, and then of course there's the ones that are in between. This balanced body one's pretty padded, but it's still considered in between. If you use some other brands, they have some really padded ones. Length also varies depending on brand. Balanced body, it's a pretty good size. I can go on it and so can my 6-foot tall husband with no problem. I've used reformers though where I barely fit on it and I'm 5'2". So it just depends. There's nothing wrong with the shorter carriage, but it's a little easier when it's bigger. The Allegro 2 is even bigger and wider. So it just depends on which one you have. Okay, then you have shoulder blocks. Some reformers, the shoulder blocks come off, some of them, they don't. If you do have a balanced body and you want to take them off, these right here, these little poles, twist, slide forward and lift. If you have like an Allegro 2 balanced body, they just lift right off. Most of your reformers that are non-balanced body brand, they come off. A lot of them are still a twist side motion just so it's secure. Some of them I've used, you have to go underneath to take the shoulder blocks off. There's not a huge need to take them off unless you're using if your bar comes all the way back and you're doing an infinity bar exercise, sometimes you'll want to take those off. Most of the time though, you can just leave them on. In between the two is what we call your headrest. Headrest lifts, headrest lowers. Depending on which brand you have, they have different ways that they lift and lower. Most of them are like mine, where you have a little flap underneath. If you lift, you either pull it forward or push it, depending on the brand, and it keeps it upright. And then there's a middle position on mine, and then there's a third just flat position. A lot of exercises, we need it flat, but there's plenty of exercises where if you need it lifted, you can keep it lifted. The benefit to lifting really for me is if you're looking straight at the ceiling and you're starting to look backward, like you find that your head is tilting back to look behind you naturally, the headrest will help lift you back up. There's some exercises also where we require it up, such as long stretch, where we push our heels into it. But your instructor, whether you're doing virtual, one-on-one, or whatever, will always tell you whether it should be up or down, so you don't really have to worry about it. But if we don't, you can assume just to flatten it out if you can. But if we don't say anything, it's probably not super important whether it's up or down. Okay, behind your shoulder blocks are your straps. Also varies greatly, not just dependent upon the machine, but on what you personally have ordered. So these are Balance Body style straps, so they've got long loops and short loops. Typically longer is gonna be for feet, shorter for hands. I ordered these on Etsy. I have the standard ones that come with the machine. They look like this, so see how they look similar? They're just a little more padded than these are. Now, a lot of straps that come with reformers look a little bit different. They're on my springboard right now, but they're somewhere in between the size here. So they're not quite this long typically. I'm saying that because if you are someone who is super flexible or super short, sometimes you may end up going to the shorter strap with your feet, which is not cued very often, but if you're flexible and short and you're not at risk of like straining your hamstring or something like that, that is an option that you have, okay? So again, ask, or your instructor should be telling you. With your strap, we also have something called ropes. We'll say pull the ropes or grab the ropes. It's this part right here, right where your chain meets your rope. And you may not have a hook like this. You may only have rope. Not everyone has a metal hardware on their reformers. So if you don't, you just find where they meet and you grab right above it. And that's gonna make the tension heavier. A lot of times that is for when you're laying on your stomach on the box. Okay, but we'll always tell you. The last thing to think about on the reformer is your risers. Risers are back here, standard. It's about 3 up when you look at your risers with the holes in them. Use your manual or go to Google for your specific model if you're not sure. We usually have it on the 3rd hole on Balance Body. Okay, it just depends. Some exercises call for the poles or the risers to be all the way down. It really just depends. I very rarely actually move mine. I think it's fine to leave them up for most exercises. But I would use your specific model to make sure, because it could somehow just be a different length depending on the brand that you got, okay? So again, you've got your foot bar, your platform, your springs, carriage, shoulder blocks, headrest, straps, ropes, risers. Try to remember all of those. Just work on memorization of those things. The other thing is your jump board. So every jump board is different depending on what brand you have here. So again, I have Balance Body and I have the Jumpus Maximus, so I got the biggest jump board they have. Most of them don't look like this. Balance Body specific, you have to move the foot bar. So you're gonna pull the tabs in. It goes down to the bottom, but it has to be locked in. Then it slides. If you look in between the little, there's a little metal like plate. It goes in between that and the wood. Now mine's not gonna fit unless I put it behind these bars. Usually you don't have to do so much work to put it in. I have to come back behind to put mine in. So I slide it in. Careful, baby. And once I've done that, on Balance Body, in most brands, this will be most brands, there are little knobs back there. You come back to the back of the reformer. You make sure they're loose so that it goes all the way down. Make sure it's level. Make sure the foot bar is back here supporting it. You tighten the knobs just until they're barely tight. Don't go super tight. It's really hard to unscrew them if you do. The rule that I learned is 1-2 screw. So it's 1 big turn, 2 big turn, half a turn, okay? And it should feel good. Okay, so there's your jump board. There are a lot of other brands though, slightly different. It just depends. Some of them, it goes like into a little slot in your platform. You may have a reformer like that. So you'll slide it into the platform, or the platform comes off, you switch it out for the jump board, you still have to screw it in and support it with the foot bar, regardless of what reformer you have. So that's kind of the basics of the reformer. I hope this helps. Just learn to navigate the reformer first before you dive into exercises. Check out my next video. I'll go over some of those basic exercises, cues, and just how to do them, how to modify, how to progress.